So today I want to talk about one of my favorite Nintendo DS games of all time, Meteos. Not only is it my favorite on the Nintendo handheld, but also one of my favorite puzzle games out there. I mostly want to talk about the first installment, but also want to dip into its legacy with spin-offs and quote-unquote sequels. Meteos came out on the Nintendo DS in 2005, one of the earlier titles of the handheld's life cycle. It was developed by Q Entertainment and published by Bandai Namco. When revisiting the game, I realized the game was designed by Masahiro Sakurai, the Kirby and Smash Bros. Guy. Some of the inspiration for Meteos include the game Missile Command, the film The Matrix, and the television series 24. The core gameplay is a Match 3 style puzzle game. Doing so will launch blocks off the screen, which can affect other players, or just survive. Also, you can chain combos and speed up the falling blocks. You move blocks vertically, and you can either play the game using a stylus on the touchscreen or using the D-pad and buttons on the DS. I would say that most will agree that it's ideal to play with a stylus, since you can more freely move pieces up and down, versus without the touch controls, you're constantly moving a cursor and hitting buttons. One thing I'm guilty of when playing Meteos is that if things get crazy full, I desperately swipe the screen up and down hoping to make matches. Some may call it cheating, but I think it's all in good fun. It can be a lifesaver or just end up failing. The game also has a story and even multiple endings. I've seen criticism that the plot is incomprehensible, but I think it's all in good fun and appreciate the effort put into it, especially since it's not really necessary for a puzzle game. The game's visual and soundtrack is really great, especially the music. The game has 32 planets which essentially act as themes. Not only do these planets have unique visuals and music, they also affect gameplay, such as how pieces fall and launch, like different planets have different gravity, etc. The game has several different modes. I would say the main one would be Star Trip. It's considered the story mode, and basically it just versus a computer progressing through different rounds. Other single-player modes include Simple, which allows you to customize matches such as number of lives and time. There's Time War, that includes settings such as launching the most blocks in a set amount of time, or launching a set amount of blocks in the fastest time. There's a mode called Deluge, which is basically an endless mode. With these additional single-player modes, not only can you choose specific planets to play, but also farm materials to unlock other planets and more. To note, you can gain materials from Star Trip, but that mode is more or less random, so choosing specific planets can help farm materials that you need. There's also a multiplayer mode, which uses the same rules as Simple mode, and can have 2 to 4 players. A cool feature of the DS is Download Play. With this, you can send a temporary demo version to others, so if your friends didn't own Meteos, you can still play multiplayer with them. So after talking about the first Meteos game, I want to talk about follow-up games that I kind of research and learn more about. The first one I want to talk about is called Meteos Online. From the same publisher, it was a Japan-only game, lasted from November 2006 to October 2007, so barely a year. It was released on PC, so there was no touch controls, and relied on keyboard. Then there's Meteos Mobile. Also the same publisher in Japan only. It was also released in November 2006. I couldn't find much about it besides it had the same gameplay, but also had a gacha mechanic and did allow multiplayer via Bluetooth up to 4 players. Then there's a title called Meteos Astro Blocks. It seems like a mobile phone version available in the US. It came out in March 2006. I had to look it up online to remind myself the first iPhone came out in 2007, so this mobile game came out before smartphones were really a thing. It seems to be more of a simple solo version of Meteos. It's no longer available, but I do see it's possible to run it on emulators. Next to talk about is Meteos Disney Magic. It was the only other Meteos game for the DS, released in 2007. Some may consider it a sequel. I would say it's more of a spin-off to Meteos. It's just basically Meteos with a Disney aesthetic. I do want to make a separate video about this title, so stay tuned. And next to talk about is Meteos War. This seems to be the last official game of the series and was released on Xbox Live Arcade back in 2008. I really wish I had a chance to play this, but never had an Xbox 360, especially to see how it would be like to play Meteos on a console. The game did get mixed reviews, but some praise. Most criticism was using the controller is an inferior way to play Meteos, as well as the online had lag. So another game worth mentioning is Meteos for Cacao. It was released in 2013 for smartphones, but had a different publisher, Cacao. I couldn't find much besides it was more targeted towards a Korean audience, but it was supposedly attainable worldwide. The game seems mostly single player, but did have score leaderboards. There was also apparently a gacha mechanic, as well as being able to get stickers and emojis from this Meteos game that could be used in the Kakao messaging apps, which I don't know much about, but that's a thing apparently. One last Meteos-like game I want to talk about is one called Meteoro Striker. It doesn't seem to be official and only appears to be available via Google Play. It's definitely inspired by Meteos and feels like it treads on a rip-off, knockoff territory. I actually tried it myself and it seems pretty good. It does feel like it's lacking, like the gameplay does feel a little bit too heavy, but if you're looking for something that kind of scratches that Meteos itch or kind of curious about the game, I think it's a pretty good representation of Meteos, so I think it's worth checking out. To wrap up this video, I would say with revisiting Meteos for the Nintendo DS, I can still say it's one of my favorite games for the handheld as well as puzzle games. It's a shame there hasn't been any new official Meteos game for over a decade. I feel like the gameplay is almost dependent on the touch controls of the Nintendo DS, and besides smartphones, modern gaming platforms don't really have that. I wish I had played Meteos Wars so I can experience Meteos on a console, but when playing the Nintendo DS version and using the buttons and D-pad, I immediately want to switch back to the touch controls. Maybe it's the biggest flaw with Meteos being designed around the touch controls, I can't say for sure. Maybe it can be done right for consoles, and maybe we can finally see a new title in the series. I can only hope one day we might, but I can still say it's one of my favorite games on the Nintendo DS. Just want to say thanks so much for listening and watching my video about Meteos for the Nintendo DS. I did have a fun time revisiting this series. It was very nostalgic and even neat to learn things about the series I missed out on. I also had a good time of just collecting my thoughts and ideas and just putting this all together to kind of share what I like about the game. I also want to say the best way to support me and the channel is to like, comment, and subscribe, which you can see links in the description and all that, and y'all have a good day.